Jake Allen recently picked up career win number 200. And let's talk about the Devils' lethal power play. Jeremy Colliton has that team buzzing on the man advantage. We have a lot to break down in today's episode of Locked On Devils. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Elliott scores! Oh, Stevens stepped up, nailed him. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here at the Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play-by-play announcer, Devils writer for Pucks and Pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member, Trey Matthews. What's on the agenda for today's episode? In the first segment, we're going to talk about the Devils' recent game against the Washington Capitals, in which they came out victorious by a score of 3-2. No, it's not going to be a post-game recap episode because that game was from a few days ago. I'm sure no one really cares about it right now, but I got to give credit where credit is due. Jake Allen, he was phenomenal in between the pipes, and if I'm being completely honest, he saved the Devils behind in that game. And I also want to highlight another player who has caught my eye recently after I, quote-unquote, thrashed him in a recent episode. Then in the second segment, we're going to talk about something that's been very dominant for New Jersey up to this point, and that's been their power play. I had a lot of expectations for the Devils' power play unit going into this season. I said getting Dougie Hamilton back was going to be critical for them, but Jeremy Colliton, he has taken this power play to new heights, and I want to talk about it a little bit more because one of my colleagues over at Pucks and Pitchforks, Alex Chavancy, he recently published an article for Pucks and Pitchforks dissecting it, and I wanted to share my 2-cent opinion. And then in the third and final segment, to close out today's episode, I will say whether or not the Devils can keep this dominant power play going, because we've seen this happen before where the Devils start the season very dominant on the power play. And at around this time last year, that's when it started to really go downhill. Let's reminisce over the past, shall we? But let's talk about the Devils' recent game against Washington Capitals, in which they took on the Caps in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Alex Ovechkin did not play. Sending my well wishes to Ovechkin. It sucks that he's sidelined for like a few months due to him fracturing his leg. I really hope he returns sooner rather than later, because I really do want to see Ovechkin break the Wayne Gretzky record this year. And if I know anything about hockey players, they're generally fast healers and they return sooner rather than later. But anyway, the Devils won that game by a score of 3-2, and they have now won 2 straight games. And getting these wins against divisional rivals, I think it does a lot for the Devils' confidence. But I really just need to talk about Jake Allen for a second, because he is the Devils' backup goalie, and he's been everything we could have asked for and more, because he is putting on a great performance, similar to what we saw late last year when he was dealt over to New Jersey. And remember, the Montreal Canadiens are retaining half of his salary. Markstrom recently celebrated his 500th career game. Jake Allen celebrated his 200th career win at the conclusion of the Capitals game. Back-to-back outings, back-to-back milestones celebrated by Devils netminders. Allen saw 25 shots, and he saved 23 of them. And that third period, I got to admit, I was on pins and needles a little bit, but Jake Allen really pulled through for New Jersey. And so far this year, he has racked up 5 wins. He has a goals against average of 2.26. He has a save percentage of .921, and he has recorded 2 shutouts. Let me just show some appreciation toward the Devils goalies, because I know that was a big talking point heading into the season. Can the Devils get anywhere from decent to great goaltending? Because people believed that if the Devils had a decent goalie in between the pipes, they would be a playoff caliber team. Not only a playoff caliber team, but a championship caliber team. And I think Markstrom and Allen have done that and more. Now, before I give them their roses, let me give credit where credit is due. Tom Fitzgerald, phenomenal when it came to getting Jake Allen and Jacob Markstrom here in New Jersey, because the Canadians, like I just said, are retaining half of Allen's salary, and the Flames are retaining about 31% of Markstrom's salary. So the Devils have two great goalies on their roster, and they're not even paying full price for them. I don't know how Fitzy was able to do it, but I'm going to be sending thank you cards to the Flames and also the Canadians. Now, let's talk about the actual product, Allen and Markstrom. It's still relatively early in the season, but I would say that the Devils have gotten what they need to get out of Markstrom and Allen. Hopefully they can keep it going. That's my big thing. But both of them have been great. And like I told you guys, I did not care what the numbers were saying, because a few weeks ago, the numbers were saying that the Devils' goaltending is below average. And I just said, I find that hard to believe, just due to the fact that both of them are passing the eye test for whatever reason. And I spoke to Chico Resch about it. I spoke to Matt Loughlin about it, and they agreed with me. Like, in this case, you got to ignore the advanced analytics. You got to ignore the numbers. You got to ignore what people are trying to put together and just go based on what you're seeing and what your gut is telling you. And what it's telling me is that both Jake Allen and Jacob Markstrom have been phenomenal. I know stats tell an important story, but they don't tell the complete story. Congratulations to Jacob Markstrom, like I said, recently celebrating career game number 500, and Jake Allen picking up career win number 200. I'm glad that they're playing for the Devils, and they've exceeded my expectations, but we're still only a quarter of the way done with the season. Wow, a quarter of the way done with the season. Can you believe it? And another person I want to give credit to is Tomas Tatar, because he's still got it. As you guys know, a few episodes ago, I talked about how the Devils' fourth line wasn't going to get the job done. It consisted of Justin Dowling, Tomas Tatar, and Curtis McDermott. I said, McDermott, a great aggressive player, and he strikes the fear into his opponents, and he can have his teammates back more often than not, and I'm sure his teammates appreciate it, but he cannot be an everyday player. Same with Dowling, and I expected just a little bit more from Tomas Tatar, but Tatar had a multi-point outing against the Capitals. He registered a goal and assist, and now he has 3 points in his last 2 games. Just the little things from Tomas Tatar, and it just makes me excited, because that's the Tomas Tatar I saw a couple seasons ago during that Devils historic year. Tomas Tatar is not the same player that he once was, which is hard to believe because it was only just a couple seasons ago. I'm acting like it was 5 or 10 years ago, but he is getting a little older, and his role's a little different compared to what it was a couple seasons ago. He's not on the same line as Nico Hischier and Dawson Mercer. In fact, Mercer's on the third line. Hischier is centering 2 different players. But anyway, let's not harp on the past in this case. I know this isn't the same role that Tatar had during the 2022-2023 season, but I just expected a little bit more from him, in my personal opinion. And hopefully this string of games he's put together, in which he has registered 3 points in his last 2 games, hopefully he can get it going a little bit. And in the game against the Hurricanes, he saw more ice time because Paul Cotter was benched for most, if not all, the third period, due to the fact that he got a late penalty in the second period, and then entering the third period, the Canes were able to capitalize on the power play goal, and I don't think Sheldon Keefe was too happy about that. So Cotter got the boot for that game, but Tatar really stepped into the third line, and he was actually doing somewhat solid production work, and he walked away with an assist. But yeah, just want to give credit to Tomas Tatar. We'll see where it goes from here. All right, we're going to talk about the Devils' man advantage momentarily, but before we continue, let me tell you guys about Built. If you're a renter, I'd start taking advantage of Built if I were you. Here's the thing: we earn points on groceries, travel, and practically everything else we buy. We should also be earning points on rent, one of our biggest monthly expenses. Built changed the game by letting renters earn high value points on rent and around their neighborhood. There's no cost to joining Built, and as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines and even the ones you haven't heard of. There's over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Built points toward. Points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experiences that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnhl. That's joinbuilt.com/lockedonnhl. Make sure you use our URL so they know that we sent you. Joinbuilt.com/lockedonnhl to start earning points on your rent payments today. Okay, let's talk about the Devils' special teams, shall we? If you're curious, before we talk about the power play, the Devils have the ninth best penalty kill in the NHL. They are killing penalties at an 82.3% clip, which is pretty good if you ask me, but their power play has been something else. Courtesy of Alex Chavancy over at Pucks and Pitchforks, the site I also work at. I will leave a link in the description to the article if you want to give it a look. He broke down as to why the Devils might be doing so much better on the power play this season compared to last season. And I also want to add my opinion to the mix as well. Here's the Devils' first power play unit: Stefan Noesen, Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt, Dougie Hamilton, Jack Hughes. Their second power play unit is Timo Meier, Eric Haula, Tomas Tatar, Luke Hughes, and Dawson Mercer. Let's talk about the biggest adds to the Devils' man advantage. The first being Dougie Hamilton. I get it. Dougie's been around for the past few years. Why is he the biggest add? Well, let's recap. Around this time last season, Dougie Hamilton sustained a left pectoral tear, and he actually had to get surgery for it, and his season was shut down early. And we were anticipating for him to maybe return around playoff time, but as the season progressed, you just knew that this Devils team, they weren't going to go to the playoffs, and it was just a small sliver of hope that maybe Dougie can help the Devils in more ways than one, because when Dougie went down with his injury, the Devils' power play got significantly worse. Why is that? Well, they had to thrust rookie Luke Hughes into a bigger role. The thing about Luke Hughes is that he's a really good player, but he's similar to his brother, which is he's a phenomenal passer. But if Luke Hughes is ripping a shot at the point, nobody in the NHL is going to fear that. He still needs to develop it. Whereas for Dougie Hamilton, his clapper, while it might not find the back of the net, it certainly creates some opportunities for his teammates. And Bill Spalding actually touched on this late in the year last season, in which Dawson Mercer was also struggling a bit. Mercer had career lows in a lot of statistical categories, and Bill said that part of that could be Dougie Hamilton's absence, because Dougie Hamilton would rip a shot from the point, and Mercer would be there to collect the loose change. See that sort of example? And I think the same could be said for the Devils' power play. I would say Dougie Hamilton was their biggest add just because he's coming back from injury, coming back from surgery, and he is helping the Devils' power play in more ways than one. People fear that slap shot from Dougie. I'll argue and say that it's probably one of the best in the NHL. I will die on that hill. The second biggest add is Stefan Noesen. Now, Noesen did play power play minutes with Carolina last season, but he wasn't on their first power play unit. One of the things that I've been raving about Noesen throughout the course of this season is his net front presence. It is phenomenal. In fact, Christy Flannery of the Hockey News will always post a video, post Devils practice, and you just see Stefan Noesen working on his net front drill. He's preparing for it. And I think that's big for New Jersey because you get someone to collect the loose change out in front and find the back of the net. I'd say Nason has been a huge catalyst on the Devils' power play. And Jeremy Colliton, what more can I say? He's got this team buzzing on the power play. The Devils' success rate on the man advantage is 31%. That is second best in the NHL, trailing just behind Winnipeg, who currently has the best record in the NHL. Now, in the article published by Alex Chavancy, he gave credit to the Devils' puck movement, their one-touch passing, as a result of better power play opportunity. And I do agree with that assessment from Alex Chavancy because I notice it as well. I actually talk to Chico about this quite frequently, which is sometimes the Devils would look too stagnant on the power play. And I think this was a bigger issue a couple seasons ago, but they started to fall back into that trend last year when Dougie went down with his injury. The Devils would just remain still. They would pass the puck around. They couldn't penetrate. They couldn't collapse the defense. And that made it easier for teams to kill off the Devils. And it goes to show you how important it is to have all of your pieces working as one, because the Devils still had Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, Nico Hischier, Timo Meier on their power play unit. And I think teams would give an arm and a leg to have those type of players on their roster. But the Devils just couldn't make it work. But Jeremy Colliton, similar to what Alex Chavancy said, he's got this team moving the puck a lot more, especially with the one-touch pass. Remember a couple years ago where the video game Shell was just basically saying, oh, yes, we got more one-touch passes on our game. It's so important. It's an integral part of the game. And I was just saying, yeah, they're blowing smoke. Well, in this case, it's working for the Devils, but I'm still not going to play the video game this year. I'm not. I don't care if the Hughes brothers are on the cover. It's just a recycled game from last year, the year before that. But anyway, I'm getting way off track. Dougie Hamilton being back and healthy, Stefan Nason being a big addition, and Jeremy Colliton just being an absolute genius alongside Sheldon Keefe. Courtesy of Alex Chavancy once again, in the first 10 games, the Devils averaged 8.41 expected goals and 28.68 high danger chances per 60 while on the power play. Incredible work. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. This Devils team is far too talented to be a mediocre power play team. And I'm glad that Jeremy Colliton has brought the best out of these players, and hopefully they can keep it up, because if you put the Devils on the power play, they are dangerous. And remember, the Devils have scored multiple power play goals against the Panthers and the Hurricanes. Both teams are one of the best penalty killing teams in the NHL. That says something. All right, I'm going to share my opinion real quick as to whether or not the Devils can keep it going on the man advantage, going the rest of the way. But before we continue, let me tell you guys about Game Time. I've actually used Game Time before to purchase myself some MLB and NBA tickets. Game Time picks, curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. All in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the whole upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Seat views. Get a good view from your seat in the app before you buy. The lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in ticketing industry. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time, everybody. And now, let me tell you guys about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Okay, real quick, to close out today's episode, can the Devils keep it going? Can they keep this high clip of converting on the power play going the rest of the way? I'm going to say yes, and here's why. Stefan Nason is a huge callus on the power play. Dougie Hamilton is also a huge callus on the power play. If you still have those two players on your power play, you're going to be successful. But not only that, you still have your better players in Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, Nico Hischier. On the second power play unit, you got Timo Meier, Eric Haula, Luke Hughes, Dawson Mercer. I think teams would give an arm and a leg to have those types of players on your roster as well. I think the Devils' power play is here to stay. I think they are going to be a very good team on the man advantage, and I don't think history is going to repeat itself from last year, in which the Devils just started so good on the power play, and then all of a sudden they start to go downhill and this ship is sinking fast. No, I don't think that's the case. I think they are going to maintain their success on the power play. I think Jeremy Colliton is a great coach in that regards. And if the Devils just stay healthy, barring another catastrophic major injury, I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. And I actually predicted it last season, which was I said that the Devils can be a top 5 or a top 10 power play team in the entire league. And I was unfortunately proven wrong because Dougie Hamilton went down with an injury, and that really hurt their chances. But they were the best power play team in the NHL last season to start off the year. And now they're continuing to do it, and all their players are remaining healthy. I'm really satisfied with what the coaching staff is doing, and I have the utmost faith in them. But let me know your thoughts. Do you think the Devils will continue to be successful on the power play? What are your thoughts on the Devils goaltending tandem? And what were some of your thoughts from these previous 2 games from the Devils? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on podcast streaming service, hit me up on my personal X page app at TreyMatt4 or the show's X page app at Locked On Devils. As for today's episode, that's all the time I have for you. Continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day in New Jersey. Go Devils. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks for listening once again.